3 times since May 14, 1948, when the State of Israel was proclaimed, her people had to fight to preserve the independence of the state. In 1948, when 6 Arab armies invaded their land, in flagrant violation of the declared will of the United Nations. In 1956, when Israel forces had to wipe out the murderous nests of Fedayeen in the Gaza Strip and Sinai. And again in 1967, when a concerted Arab thrust threatened the total liquidation of the state. Today, as in 1948, the words of the Proclamation of Independence ring true. We extend the hand of peace and good neighborliness to all the states around us and to their peoples. Today, as in 1948, immigration is Israel's lifeblood. The right of every Jew to live in Israel is one of the fundamental principles of the state. Since May 1948, Israel has taken in over 1.25 million new immigrants, including 500,000 refugees from Arab countries. In the first 3 years alone after the establishment of Israel, 683,000 newcomers poured in, displaced persons and other fugitives from Eastern and Central Europe, refugees from Yemen and Iraq, immigrants from North Africa. The people, homeless and uprooted, were in need of a land. The land, waste and barren, was in need of people. To weld the two together has been the task of the Keymet, the Jewish National Fund, Israel's land development agency, which through its land policy laid the basis for the Jewish state, and is now called upon to help in its upbuilding and consolidation. In the early years of statehood, the Jewish National Fund combined the absorption of immigrants with the huge task of reviving the wastelands. New immigrants prepared and reclaimed the very land on which their future farms were to subsist. Today, Israel's farmers produce 3/4 of the country's food and make an important contribution to its exports. Among the 700 villages which have been established during the past 2 generations, 480 have been set up since the rise of the state. During the past 2 decades, the cultivated area has more than doubled. The area under irrigation more than quadrupled, and production has risen 5 times. The number of workdays in land development swelled rapidly, from 60,000 in 1949 to almost 300,000 in the following year, and to 700,000 workdays in the year thereafter. When the flood of mass immigration subsided, the number of workdays settled down to around 500,000 annually. Soon, land development branched out from the local to the regional. each village forming a link in a regional system, and the entire area planned as one economic unit. This central planning has been made possible because land reserves and land development are under national control. Many of those new areas were borderlands, and though part and parcel of Israel, they were to all practical purposes no man's land. Huge empty stretches left dangerous gaps along the country's elongated frontiers, and vast quantities of potentially productive soil remained unused. The prototype for rural settlement on a region-wide scale is the Lachish district, inaugurated in 1955. 56 villages now thrive on its area of 225,000 acres, of which, in addition to natural pasture lands, 65,000 are under cultivation. Development of the Adullam region in South Judea was started in 1957. 25,000 acres have been set aside for 10 smallholders' villages. 5 are already in existence, together with 2 rural centers. Bordering on the Jordan, north of Lake Kinneret, is the Korazim area, started in 1961. It covers 12,500 acres, of which 2,000 are being reclaimed. There will be 3 villages: Al-Magor, which bore the brunt of the Syrian attacks, and stood its test in face of tremendous challenges. One of the others is to be a fisherman's village. The potentialities of the large Adurayim Yatir region have not yet been touched, in spite of promising storage dams for rainwater. The Modi'in region in North Judea, an area of historic renown, is a potential agricultural hinterland for Tel Aviv. In 1963, the most important regional enterprise was proclaimed, the Galilee Development Project, bringing this northern province within the country's productive circle. The rural center of Biranit has already been established, and a number of settlements are to be set up within its orbit. Sarit and Netuah were occupied by its settlers, and other villages are in the planning or building stage. One of the greatest feats in Israel's revolution against geography was the drainage of the pestilential Chule swamps. Carried out between 1951 and 1958, 15,000 acres of malaria-ridden marshlands and thousands more acres of waterlogged soil were transformed into fertile fields. Where the mosquito reigned supreme, ground nuts and cotton are now grown, serving as raw material for local industries. All in all, over 100,000 acres of wasteland were transformed into productive soil. One of the cardinal factors has been national ownership of the land, the key to comprehensive planning. Today, over 1 million acres are cultivated, and over 400,000 acres are under irrigation. Planning is designed to prevent gluts, while expanding the production of new villages. These, in consequence, now produce 50% of the milk, eggs, and poultry, 60% of the vegetables, and 45% of industrial crops. New species have been introduced to horticulture. Apples, pears, plums, peaches, and flowers, in an experimental stage no longer than 15 years ago, are now high on the export list. The significance of afforestation cannot be measured in economic terms alone. Naturally, forests yield wood and other material for industry, and afforestation plays an important role in employing unskilled labor. Since 1949, over 11 million workdays were provided in afforestation. But trees are planted in the first place to prevent erosion in the hills, to create new soil on the slopes, to form shelter belts and windbreaks in the desert, to hold wandering dunes, indeed, to change the very face of the country. Over 85 million trees have been planted since the rise of the state. Modern psychology emphasizes the role of landscapes in human behavior. Social planners see in forests and playgrounds a necessary element in an adequate standard of living for modern man. Beautifying the land means bringing out the country's inherent qualities. Israelis and tourists alike enjoy rambling in the forests, in the national parks and nature reserves, where camping places and picnic facilities have sprung up. The highlight of many a tourist's visit is planting a tree with his own hands. Make deep their roots and wide their crown, that they may blossom forth in grace amongst all the trees in Israel, for good and for beauty. Forests that have been planted honor venerated personalities or recall memorable events. The Kennedy Forest and Memorial, named for the late American president. The Winston Churchill Forest, a tribute to the great British statesman. The Canadian Centennial Forest, saluting the 100th anniversary of the Canadian Federation. The Australian Anzac Forest, in remembrance of the Australian and New Zealand heroes of the First World War. South Africa's woodland in Yatir, facing the Hebron Hills. Biggest of all, there is the Martyrs Forest in the mountains of Judea, immortalizing the memory of 6 million martyrs. All these projects and hundreds of others are the result of a common effort of the Jewish people in 50 countries in the free world on behalf of the Jewish National Fund. On the first anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem, the planting of the Peace Forest overlooking the old city of Jerusalem was inaugurated with a dignified ceremony. Mr. Yaakov Zur, chairman of the board of directors of the Jewish National Fund, describes the significance of this forest. Before a forest can be planted, before a field can be reclaimed, before a village set up, an approach road has to be built. No area can be opened up for development without giving the surveyors, the engineers, the workers, the tractors, the bulldozers a chance to get there. roads are blasted through rocks, hewn into mountains, over desert sands, bridging wadis and waters. Since the rise of the state, the Jewish National Fund has built 1,100 miles of road, almost all of them in frontier areas where they changed the security situation. It was on such roads that the border police fought infiltration, sabotage, and murder. On the same roads, Israel's Defense Army was hitting back in the Six-Day War. As populating empty frontier lands is an essential protection against hostile neighbors, the Jewish National Fund has long concentrated on border area development. Not all new border settlements are suitable for civilian settlers in the early stage. The Jewish National Fund, in cooperation with the Israel Defense Army, has set up a number of outposts manned by men and women of the Army Pioneer Settlers Corps, who combine agriculture with guard duties. Within this program, Al-Magor was set up in 1961 opposite the Syrian border. In the following years, these young people prepared the border settlements of Ma'ala Hagilboa, Me'ami, Modi'in, Viranit, and Sur Natan. At the same time, a string of such outposts was forged along the Arava Valley in Israel's southern desert, where particularly imaginative reclamation methods are required to make farming of any kind feasible, let alone rewarding. Today, most of these outposts have been turned over to civilian settlers and have become firmly rooted villages. Other groups of young people are bracing themselves for even bolder assignments. As always, land preparation will play its part. In honor of Israel's 20th birthday, an anniversary woodland will be planted in the hills of Jerusalem, to which every Jew in the world is called upon to contribute 1 tree each. Jews in the free countries are asked to plant trees both on their own behalf and in the name of their fellow Jews behind the Iron Curtain, who cannot openly identify themselves with Israel. As a result of the anniversary forest, the number of trees planted in Israel will reach over 100 million. Nothing is ever final in a dynamic society such as Israel. History is on the move, unfolding new horizons, new perspectives, new vistas. In each of the next 3 years, 5,000 acres of mountain and desert soil will have to be reclaimed, 150 miles of road laid through uninhabited territories, millions of trees be planted, and new outposts, new settlements will go up after soil improvement. Rock by rock, mountain by mountain, desert by desert, region by region, will the wilderness be thrust back. The age-old saga of a people building its home, a step toward the advancement of the entire Middle East, a pilot project of human endeavor.